Hi everybody, my name is Eitan and welcome to another After Effects tutorial. Now I know it's been a while since I posted my last tutorial and sorry about that, but today I have a really cool tutorial, so let's get started. So this is what we'll be making. So it's a really neat title sequence that you can use on, I don't know, like a sci-fi action title sequence or whatever, something like that. So let's make a new comp and let's put some text there. So I'm just gonna write text. You can write whatever you want. Just get a font with a lot of sharp edges. That tends to look the best. Now before I do anything else with this, I'm gonna make an adjustment layer, and this adjustment layer, you're not gonna know why I'm putting these effects on now, but it'll make it much easier to see our progress as we go once we're getting ready to design all the text elements. So we're going to start with adding find edges, put that on there and invert it, and then the next thing we're going to put on is a slider control, which again I'll explain why we need that later. Then the next thing we're going to do is put on a diffuse glow, okay, and then the next thing we're going to put on is a regular glow. And that diffuse glow, by the way, was from Red Giant Universe, which is a free download from Red Giant's website. Okay, so now that we have these on, this is going to make doing everything else that we're going to do much easier. So we're going to turn on our text layer, and we can see that this find edges has, once it's been inverted, has gotten a very cool look to it. So we're gonna actually not use this. We're gonna create masks from text, and just make sure you keep this under the adjustment layer. We can delete this original text layer because we won't be needing it anymore. Now I'm gonna hit enter, and text outlines 1. We're gonna make 3 copies of this, so I'm gonna duplicate it twice and turn off all but 1, just so we can work on one at a time and get the best results. So I'm going to start by adding a stroke, set it to all masks, brush size 50, which is the highest it goes to, brush hardness 100%, and spacing 0%, and set it to reveal original image. And what this will do is, if we didn't have this adjustment layer on, I can show you, it would just, we're gonna use this for drawing the whole thing on. It's basically creating a stroke around the text, but instead of putting it around the text, it's filling the text with that stroke. So now if we set it to show our adjustment layer, we get these cool outlines with these little cutout marks, which we get from doing the stroke. Okay, the next thing we're gonna add is just a glow to this layer. Okay, and just nice little, give it a little texture, little glow. Perfect. Okay, and we're gonna link this stroke, the end of it, alt-click on that. Then we're also gonna want to alt-click on our slider we put in. I told you we would use it. And then we're gonna want to pick whip this to the slider. So now, on this slider, you can control how drawn on this image will be. Okay, so we'll set that to 100 for now. And now we're going to move on to text outlines 2. So what we're going to do on this one is put on a box blur. And that put it on the adjustment layer. We don't want that. We want it on text layer 2. And last time what I did, I set it to 37 and it looked good. You can change the exact amount you want to set it to a little, but this is generally good for what I've used it with. And just check repeat edge pixels. That'll just catch anything that it's blurring that messes with the border of the frame. So now we're going to put on VC Color Vibrance. This is a free download from the Video Copilot website, and we're going to want to set this to a light blue. So, something like this. Okay, cool. And now that we have that set, we can add on another glow. This one is fine if we do a little more subtly. We just want to give it a little more of that added texture. Okay, now turn that off. Now onto the third text. We're gonna want to add a vector blur to this. And again, that added it to the adjustment layer. Make sure you're dragging it onto the layer you want. And we're going to want to set this at 500, which is the highest amount this effect goes. And this gets us a really cool textured effect that looks almost beveled in 3D. So that's great. And then we're going to want to add yet another glow to this layer. Perfect. And now, remember when we added that stroke down on the first layer? We're going to want to copy that, Control C. And on layer 2, we're going to want to put that down here. And on this layer, gonna want to put that in between the vector blur and the glow. Okay, so if we turn all of these on, we get a blue, bright, cool text effect. So that is great. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some lens flares to this, because who doesn't like lens flares? So optical flares. And set to screen. Then I think 5 is a good amount of lens flares. But first let's just set this to a nice anamorphic flare. So you can pick whatever lens flare you want. I like this one, and again, make sure that's set to either screen or add. I'll do add, that makes it a little brighter. So I'm gonna duplicate this 5 times. Just add them to different points on the text. So y'all add it at the corner here. That's 3, 4, and 1 going right through the middle. You can put that right there. And turn the brightness down a little bit. And all of these we're gonna want to go through and just set them to 3D layers. It's a little annoying, but that will pay off later. So 3, 2, 1. Awesome. So now we have those, they're 3D layers, and we're gonna want to drag all of these underneath the text outlines. And you'll notice we get a cool effect with that, but what we're gonna do is add on another adjustment layer and put that on top just of these lens flares. And you'll want to set that to find edges. Use that another time. And then invert it. And then we are going to want to convert it to black and white to make the next plugin work better, which is VC Color Vibrance, which we're going to put on and turn to red. So now we have a nice little effect here. One thing I'm noticing is this is supposed to look a little more blue than it does, but with the inversion, it's going to be a little weird. So we can play with this a little until we get a color we like. You can just sort of see on that inner area. I think a blue really just looks good here. Let's try it down at the bottom. There we go. So there, we have a very nice, bold-looking title. So now what we're gonna do is add a camera. And we are also going to want to make these 3 text outlines 3D layers. Now what you don't want to do is make the optical flares layers 3D layers, because they are set to 3D here. If you're using pictures like lens flare pictures you got from the internet, then yes, definitely set them to 3D layers, but not these. You also don't want to set your adjustment layers to 3D. So now that we have that set, we can get to animating everything. So start with the slider here. At the beginning, set it to 0. Won't be written on at all. Somewhere around 5 seconds, or however long you want to take you. Set it to 100. And so in between, it will be drawing everything on. Okay, that's neat, and saving that. Okay, so now we can go to our camera, open up the settings here, go to transform. I just select everything just in case, don't know what I'm gonna want to move later. And we can get to still sort of the start just to see where we want to start our camera. So we can zoom in a little, and I'm just hitting C to cycle through these camera tools. And you can see as we spin the camera around, all the lens flares and everything go with it too. So now I'm going to use this position mover to position us here. And at this point, this is sort of like a tease. So you don't want people to really be able to see what the letters are you're making, just that you're drawing something. So that can be a little difficult, but we can start our camera right here, and let's just move these 2 keyframes to the front, just to replace the ones we already have. Now we'll skip to around, we can do it every second. So we'll go to 1 second in, about approximately 1 second in. We're 1 frame under a second, so that's fine. So we can bring this down, looking up now maybe. And we can skip ahead a little more. And here, you see that some interesting stuff is going on. So we can spin this around. And we can skip ahead a little more. The letter is now complete, so you can spin this here. And we can move this position up a little maybe. I don't know, just give it a little variety. This takes a little while, but don't slack off here because it'll just ruin the whole look of the effect, especially with the last step. It'll just make everything not look as good. So we can bring this around, rotate it up, and here you're able to see a little too much of the letters, so we can zoom in as well. And then we can do 2 more keyframes. We can spread this out a little here. Zoom out. Pull the camera up. That's good. And then here, now that we're coming close to the end of the 5 seconds, we can pull out the camera. Rotate it around. Zoom out a little more. Position tool to bring us mostly into place. rotate it. And place it just exactly how you want it. So boom, there we go. We have our title effect. So let's just, I'm going to set this to 1/4, so resolution's pretty bad, but let's just watch this. It's still being a little slow. This is a very graphics intensive effect we're doing. But anything where you really have to do this much animation is. Resolution really is not very good. One thing I'm noticing that might help this a little bit though is having some flickering lens flares, so we can just turn on flicker on a few or all of these. For the purpose of the tutorial, I'm just going to do it on a couple, but I'm just going to pick 3 and set them to random amounts, but you can make them. You can make all of them flicker if you want. I think that's what I did on the other one. Okay, and now one last thing of this part of the effect, and then we get to the exciting conclusion. We're going to want to add one more adjustment layer, or you can throw everything onto that adjustment layer, but to keep things a little neater, I'm just going to make a new one, and I'm going to put this over where the lens flares would be. Then I'm going to put a transform control on here. And I'm going to put a brightness control on here. There we go. And I think we can give it a couple seconds here, and then we'll bring it out. So what we'll do, we'll set this keyframe here, and then what you're going to want to do is you can open up like the scale, maybe bring that down. You can play with the skew a little. And then you can either turn up or down the brightness. There are a couple ways you can do this, and the opacity to complement that. And then you can uncheck uniform scale if you want, and this will change the height and the width, so you can bring stuff in separately. So you'll want to set at least one of those to 0. There you go, and then you can just make your text fade out. So we can just go to the transparency, all of these. I'm just holding shift, select them, hit T. Push that back, and then set it to 0. And so now we have a little, I'll play this again in horrible resolution. It's just a simple little way to bring it out. You can do whatever you want here. Okay, so now what you'd want to do, and I'm going to end it, press N to end it. This is a lot of rendering power the computer needs to do this. So for the last effect we're gonna add, I rendered this. So I have the previous version rendered right here, so I'm gonna drag that into a new comp. So this looks pretty similar to what we did, just fully rendered. It's not a couple little differences, but I mean, it's enough totally from what we did to get the sense of what I did here. So the big effect we're gonna add on here is time blend. So you can just look for that, CC time blend, and drag that on. Then we're gonna want to set it to add, and voila. If you notice that there are any, like normally after you do something like that, there are gonna be some frames like this, weird frames. So what you're gonna wanna do is go to the beginning and clear it. And that basically what this is doing is it's taking frames from various time and from the past, and then overlaying them in the add blending mode on top of everything else. And so that's how we're getting this very cool effect, but it could also be a problem. So if it's not sampling the frames directly in order, if you've just scrubbed through the timeline. So that's that, and it's a little bright here, so we can just add on curves. You can darken that a little bit if you want to. And there you have it, a cool title effect. So, thanks for watching this After Effects tutorial. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try to get back to you. So, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.